What are we talking about today, Loper? You had a whole agenda.
I am the man with the agenda.
Yes.
Uh, Today we're going to talk about the festival.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that I don't think a lot of people know is how the festival even kind of came to be. And I don't, it's funny because we never really sought out to really ever do a festival.
Oh.
And, I was thinking about this earlier. Ironically, the way that the festival even came about. Do you remember how that happened?
Well, tell me. Remind me.
So I guess some kid had made a flyer of some mock festival and put WAKAAN letterhead at the top of it, and was like, it would be super badass if this happened. And it was the first, I think, flyer floating around the internet of WAKAAN Festival.
Yep, I do
And
remember that.
we were all very I remember, I think you screenshotted it and a few other people screenshotted it and sent it to me. And they were like, did you guys book this? And I was like, I have no idea what this is, but it looked weirdly professional and maybe not professional, but look like something that we would, do. And I was like, oh my God, did I confirm something and not write it down? Or I can't even imagine this thing of this magnitude, happening without just some, and come to find out it was this made up dream lineup that this kid had kind of created, but it was pretty on brand. But weirdly enough, it caught a lot of momentum online, and there was tons of comments and lots of people being like, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. And that actually was the first thought about doing WAKAAN Festival.
And I do remember, well, first off, that felt slightly flattering, I guess, that we would be,
Yeah.
hold to that high standard, in someone's eyes. But secondly, we started joking about it, like, how crazy would it be? And it wasn't even fully a seriously developed thought at that point.
There wasn't a serious thought about it for sometime later. In fact, it took a while for us to roll around the marbles, and then we were like, maybe, just fucking maybe, take a leap of faith, take a punt. Maybe this is something that people actually would want to see. And that is what started the conversations for the festival. So, to whoever did that,
Yeah, thank you.
Thumbs up, because you honestly were the brainchild of the whole thing. And it's interesting because it was never the festival was never something that we actually gave any sort of credence to, and it was always something that was always called for by the community and the fan base. We never really thought too much about it in any capacity, and really the driving force behind even that first year was everybody wanted to see it and everybody wanted it to happen. And that is the thing that kind of motivated us to say, well, maybe we should take this serious and, look into it. And then from that point, we started kind of exploring, realized it was going to cost an ass load of money. But, it felt like maybe there could be something there. And that is how it all started. So, kind of crazy. And now here we are. We just went on sale for 2022. Obviously, due to the pandemic, we took a couple years off. And I think a lot of people were really wanting us to do it last year. And, I think it's important to kind of open that up and discuss that. But like, like we're not promoters. Like it didn't feel like a very good call to say, yeah, let's, in this very short window of time, take that big of a risk and not, you know, do it in the way in which we had envisioned it of a second year festival.
For sure. I mean, personally, I felt gutted that we didn't keep it up consecutively, because that's sort of a thing with festivals in particular, where it grows into something like a yearly adventure for people. So we lost some momentum there, but hey, everything got kind of weird for a long time. I'm
Yeah.
very happy we're doing it again. And yeah, I've never worked as a show promoter. I think you have,
Yeah,
though,
I definitely
in
have.
the very distant past. And maybe that's what helped us, because it for sure is one of those humbling things that you start to pull on one end and a lot keeps coming. It's a lot to learn.
Yeah, like actually, like when I first started promoting shows, the big promoter in my market, and I was doing like, I had made a bunch of relationships through like touring and stuff, and was doing like some of these like alt rock kind of punk rock hardcore bands that were kind of not hugely well known but relatively well known, bands that could sell 250, 500, 1,000 tickets. And I remember doing it and being, relatively decent at it. And that caused concern for the big promoter in town. And he told me, he was like, he wanted to set up a meeting. It was just like finding out who this stupid ass kid was promoting shows in his market. And, we sat down and he was like, so first thing I'm going to tell you is, if you want to be a promoter and you're not okay with taking all the money you have out of your bank account, which I don't think at the time I even had a bank account. I still hid money under my bed. But he was like, if you're not okay with like taking all the money in your account, putting it in a paper bag, going out to your driveway and lighting it on fire, you have no business being a concert promoter. And I was like, holy shit.
You think you said that to scare you, but
it's like that.
Maybe it's also true to a certain extent.
It definitely is. Like, so many factors could have like gone wrong with the festival. I remember first year in 2019, we had really great weather. And then the night you were supposed to close on Saturday, storms started brewing. And
Yep.
I mean, so many different factors, such as weather, what else is in the market, like can play a crucial role in whether or not you win or lose on a show. And especially, on a festival that big, the margins aren't, super great. So like, could have, I mean, in our festival was self-funded, like you and, your partner in that basically took that risk and that roll of the dice. And, it's not like this endless stream of money. It's like we controlled every facet of the festival, the good and the bad, and learned so much about how to kind of do that on a larger scale. But by being able to kind of like take that on and walk through that process and that journey, I think it was really eye opening to do an event at that magnitude. And I had done stuff previously, but I wasn't like super as involved in the first year as probably what my role is now. But I think that's something that I think is, would kind of be interesting to kind of discuss about the relationships with, some of the people that kind of make the festival work and how it all kind of functions. And then things that like talking about, like, in 2019, for instance, what was the high point of the festival for you personally?
The high point was that we actually went ahead and did it, first off, because such a huge boost for the community. And yes, it was a personal risk, but it's proven over again and again in my life, no risk, no reward. That felt worthwhile. That's just money, and money can be made back or whatever. But
Right.
just speaking to that. But the highlight, like for me personally too, it's the first festival that I've been that closely involved in actually putting on myself. So it's always cool to level up as a person and feel like I did something, I was part of something that I never really even imagined that I would.
Yeah.
And seeing love child of mine, WAKAAN, become something so prevalent in people's lives. And also, let's not forget, because that's a big win for me, and something that I truly enjoy, is activating again the larger community, something bigger than myself. So that also includes all the artists that are given an opportunity to,
Yeah. We had a great
showcase
lineup
their
that
talent.
first year. So it's funny because like when we went on sale for that first year, you and I were actually flying to Australia.
Yeah.
And I remember being on the plane and I had purchased the Wi-Fi package. And, like I think like my goal, and this is what I was telling Waylon and Dan, who help us, Waylon's your partner in the festival and Dan is our head of, the festival.
Mhm.
And being like, man, if we can just like sell like 100 tickets, I'll be like jacked. And, you know, then, I'm on Slack in our Slack channel and we're talking. They're like, okay, it's going. And I was like, holy shit, this is crazy. I think we ended up selling, way more than 100 tickets.
We sold 65% of the entire festival
Yeah,
basically in one go.
it went pretty quickly, and it was, it was crazy to see the buzz and the excitement around that. But I think it goes back to like, the community of like calling for something and then actually showing up and like delivering.
Yeah, it was like us and also Jeff, who Excision, who put on the Lost Lands that year. Since then, like the climate has changed a little bit. Now I think that's also a thing that, not to toot our own horn too much, but being on the forefront of things, trying to pioneer new things that hasn't really happened so much in the industry before in terms of artist run festival. It has happened, but
Yeah,
I think it's gonna happen more and more now.
yeah,
Which I really embrace, because when you put people who are creative and so deeply involved in the scene with their whole heart, it's gotta be good,
yeah,
you know?
for sure. Yeah, so like this year I've been doing all the booking, and we're done with the lineup. Well, I think there's like a slot left, maybe two.
Let's talk about that for a second, because that's something that I'm not as personally involved in, but
Hmm.
something that I still see you do a lot, and it's very
Yeah,
time consuming. It's like this big giant puzzle box,
yeah,
3-dimensional, same as kind of like routing a tour.
right.
That's something that I think people don't know a lot about. So booking a
Yeah.
festival,
So like obviously like when you're booking something of this magnitude, whether it be the festival or whether it be one-off type shows, like you have a grid of targets, and there's just so everybody knows, like there's a team of individuals that make any sort of team function. There's a manager, there's lawyers, there's booking agents, there's press people, there's social media people, there's marketing people, there's all these different people. But my job is to kind of like grid out and for us to discuss what our targets are for that year's festival. We then send offers to these artists' respective agents. Some of them at UTA, Wasserman, CAA, and all these different various places. And that is their sole function, is to literally book shows on the artist's behalf, festivals on the artist's behalf, and then we'll send an offer. We go back and forth about the billing and the money, and who's playing before and who's playing after, and what the radius is, and all these different components that basically map out what the imagery of that sort of slot is going to look like for this artist.
And radius, meaning radius clauses, is something that I also never thought I was gonna have to deal with in my life.
Oh,
But it's very prevalent,
it's a
and I don't know
dumpster
if
fire.
people know what that is. But it's basically if I come to a market and play there, there's usually in my contract that I cannot come back to the same market within a certain period of time,
Yeah, there's
so that the promoter that actually makes the investment to bring me
right.
gets his or her bang.
Yeah, and the
the
larger
buck, you
the
know?
larger the artist, the not the larger the artist, the more radius there is, but like more of like y- the larger the artist, the more they kind of pull from that said market and the outside of that sphere.
Exactly. So then booking a festival provides the problem that if artists then are playing other festivals around the same time, even in a nearby state,
Yep.
we're gonna have a problem getting them.
Yeah, and I've seen
bill.
radiuses, that span over 4 or 5 states before.
Which also explains, because it's a very classic thing for on Twitter that, every artist gets like, why didn't you come to my city? I can't believe,
because it couldn't.
as like a personal insult. Whereas
Totally.
there's so much work going into that, contracts and clauses that prevent us from doing very much at all.
Even artists not wanting to play before other certain artists. I mean, like the red tape of like booking shows and festivals, a lot of it is not necessarily based on the fact that we don't want an artist. It's the fact that maybe that artist and their team don't want to play before or after
So
certain
that's the
acts.
second challenge right there.
And it's less about radius and probably more about that. Somebody feels like they're bigger. Somebody doesn't want to, be under so and so because of blah 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 blah.
It's just a bunch of hurdles. First, are they available at all?
Yeah.
Secondly, is that something they're interested in? If so, is there a radius clause that they have to adhere to? If not, still, how is it with billing?
Yep.
Is that gonna work? Because different artists have different plans for their career.
Yeah.
And want to be perceived as, of course, growing and being the biggest that they can be. And then 5, money.
Yep.
Which is probably sort of the easiest part, as long as you have money.
With our festival, that's a little bit easier because I feel like every agent always wants more.
But just be
and
honest
every
about it.
Festival buyer wants to whittle that down and pay less.
But in our case, we work very hard and we have a bunch of different streams of income. So the money part doesn't tend to be our biggest hurdle, just us personally within the WAKAAN sphere.
It's more about trying to find artists that are interesting and creating a lineup that ticks all the boxes for our fan base.
And in addition to that, I'd say that also progresses on what our fan base think that they like, because we're also educators. So every year we're trying to push the boundaries a bit, and whereas it might be a little early to talk about who we actually booked, we cannot reveal that yet. We're always trying to get out of our box,
right?
So that it's not just the same people playing.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be fresh, and there's going to be some of the same names that played the year before, and then there's going to be some surprises that maybe people didn't see coming, and I'm super excited about that.
And I think that's the thing with festivals. Like personally, I've gone to a lot of festivals, both of course playing them, but also as a patron. And one thing I really enjoy with festivals is the fact that you might decide on going because you see some people you really like, but
right.
The real takeaway for me has often been going and watching things that I wouldn't maybe pay a ticket for.
Right.
Maybe I don't even know that it even exists, and learning about new things. So we're trying to provide that experience. Like last time we did it, we had, and he's pretty well known, but he's one of my absolute favorite musicians, Ott.
Yeah.
And he doesn't play that many shows, and I don't think he was that well known for maybe the majority of the people who came to the festival. Maybe he was, but just not maybe a regular booking. We also had the sermon showcase with Sam Binga from the UK and whatnot, just providing a different thing that maybe I do myself. You know what I'm saying? And this year we're trying to expand on that. And then, you know, you don't want to take like maybe too much risk in terms of booking people that no one has ever heard of or in a totally different genre. But eventually, I'd love to have more unplugged music and more tribal music, and there's room for so much
Right.
for us to grow into jam bands.
The idea of this year was to really kind of say, if there's if you like bass music in general as a whole, there's going to be something that you'll enjoy, and it kind of encompasses all subgenres and all subcategories of that. And you know, I think part of that too is not just necessarily what provides a cool festival experience, but also like the activations that happen during the day. I think, you know, one of the things that we're going to be doing is we're probably going to be doing panels during the day, producer type corners, Q&A type stuff with us where we can kind of elaborate on some of this.
Yeah, I want to get
Um,
involved in some of those things too. We
you know,
haven't really spoken so much between us yet about this year.
right.
Last time I did a tremendous meet and greet. I don't know if that's the right. I think sometimes I under value myself, or in terms of how much pull I have on people that they actually want to come and see me and stuff. And it turned out to be, I stood there for 5 hours. I met like hundreds of people, and
Yeah.
that was lovely, but also sort of bulky and time consuming, and trying to figure out like, you know, what's the right method to
Right.
be able to meet people and have a sort of personal exchange, or good questions being asked, and
Yeah.
being able to, you know, it's like, it's one thing, it's like meeting fans is one of my absolute favorite things. It's like the other side of the coin, sitting in isolation making music, or working with you, work a lot of hours, but then like seeing the fruit of it a little bit for myself, and like what it actually does to people, what it actually means to
It's
people.
really full circle. I mean, like, even at the
It's very
festival,
inspiring. So that element needs to be there. I mean, trying to like set it up so that people actually leave such a thing encouraged, and not just like, what the fuck was this? And part of that is organization. You know, that's what we realized with like meet and greets too. It needs to be almost like treated as a meeting where someone is responsible and takes care of people.
yeah, and I think, like, you know, this year we're definitely going to be doing different things, but you know, I think we've had a lot of people kind of inquire about, like, what does gold entail, or these different levels of
You want to
different
break that down?
tiers. Not at the moment.
I mean, that's pretty
don't, but like,
self-explanatory on the side. I mean, as you said, a lot of people have been
but
asking.
I
Maybe
think
we need to clarify it.
my point is that, like, there's some of the components that are gonna still be there from 2019. Yes, the footprint has expanded a little bit, but it's still going to be this very family oriented, tight knit kind of thing. We're not trying to be Electric Forest. We're trying to do our own thing, carve our own path, and, you know, keep, you know, a big part of doing the festival this year was kind of listening to the feedback that we received from 2019 and what people were really wanting. And, you know, interestingly enough, the biggest thing and the biggest amount of feedback that we received was, don't try to make it something that it's not. Keep it
Yes.
small, keep it intimate, keep it scaled, and, you know, try to make it better for sure, but don't
there
go
are a
off
lot
the
of-
walls. Like, what we're going to do is we're going to expand art. We're going to expand activations.
Exactly.
We're going to grow in those ways, have more food options, have more different things happening that are interesting and unique and cool,
It's
but
not so much
not about the capacity.
Exactly. It's not about like chugging in like twice as many people. I think we're gonna be releasing it a little bit, but not very much, because that thing is, it is its own animal, and it should remain in that sacred form somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
It is
that
definitely not a money grab. It's so much work, and
Oh, yeah.
and such a passion project, that it's also nice if that shows. But like you said, there are a lot of other ways to improve. like you alluded to, you know, going to a festival, of course it's about the music, but personally also I enjoy so many other aspects of it during the daytime, you know, the
Yeah.
stuff that we're going to be doing, all the events that are happening within the festival, even the vending, you know.
Well,
Just
and I can also say this too, like, we're doing a pre-party on Wednesday, and tickets have been just cruising for that. So like that allows people to get in early. It allows for us to like do, and we have a really, really cool lineup
yeah,
scheduled for that. I
yeah.
mean, I'm telling you, get your ticket for that. It's gonna be awesome. So, I'm really excited about that. It feels like, having this time to kind of almost like plan throughout, last year and then moving into this year. We're way ahead of the schedule. We're gonna release the lineup in the very near future. But I think a big part of that is that, making sure that people understand that, there's going to be some of the same things, but except hopefully better and a better lineup. It's going to be a pretty magical time. Um, I also think that it would be really cool if we heard from people some things that they also kind of wanted to see.
Yeah, and
Um,
not just pertaining to the
like the
schedule of
show, but
music,
like
but
more like, what is interesting. Like, like I know that we've talked about this to some extent and touched on it, but I think it'd be interesting to get feedback and kind of see what people are really wanting to engage with. Like, what is a priority, so we can kind of try to set those things up.
that would be awesome. We usually get a lot of feedback, but that's something we're definitely asking for.
Yeah. And then, as far as like this year's lineup, well, we know you're going to be playing. So
Well, we don't know.
you'll
Well,
at least
we
be
know.
playing. Well, you'll at least be playing one time. How about that?
Probably more than one.
Maybe, but maybe not. But probably.
It's one of those places where I can also um, extrapolate a little bit from the really heavy bass music that I tend to play,
Mm-hmm.
um, and maybe do some other things.
Yeah, I mean, I remember like the first year, like watching some of your set, the trip set actually from your apartment on that balcony, and
Yeah.
just being like, I think I literally was like crying and like just like weeping like by myself in some of that, and just being like just so overwhelmed with
Well, last time I played
emotion. It
three
was
times, and the
wild.
first one was this throwback set that sort of just kept going, and it became really
You
long.
like doing those?
Um, yes and no. I like to do things that make other people happy, and if they want to hear old songs, that's totally fine. But as a producer, like I hold myself to higher production standards today. So when I listen back, it's almost like looking at a drawing you made when you were 5. Sort of, it's cute and all, but it's no. In terms of playing old music, it's a little bit like having a pimple and you're the only one who sees it. I think just in terms of production techniques, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
On one end, on the other end, it does sound a lot cleaner and bigger and hits harder if it's mixed well when you
Yeah.
play it on a big system. So just personal insecurities about how good I was at mixing down songs in the past makes it a little more to play throwback sets.
Do you enjoy your banger party sets, throwback sets, or the trip sets, or do they all serve different functions?
They also have different functions, and I really love banging party sets. Like, I just think that that is the type of music that really fits that moment in that setting with a lot of lights and lasers, and it's loud and people just go nuts. I think it's a very healthy expression too, much better than fighting or whatever people would do instead of venting that way. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But my real personal passion for making music, I think, has always been the more free form, melodic, trippy. Maybe that would be referred to as like the tripped stuff, the downtempo. But that's really how I think that's like the biggest part of my output still is more downtempo things.
Yeah.
It just doesn't really translate always as well on a big stage. It's just a different energy.
Yeah.
And there also, let's just say that too, there isn't as big of a market. That's part of why we decided to start Sasquan, to try to change that. It would be amazing to go out on a whole tour with chill music and be able to fill up rooms and have really good support artists. And that's what we're building toward too.
Yeah.
So personally, I want to play as many downtempo sets as possible when it's the right time.
Well, I think now it's more prevalent. That sort of soundscape is a lot more prevalent now than it has been in previous years, from what I've kind of seen.
What do you think that is?
I think, I think people get tired of kind of hearing the same stuff, and they start to get then educated, and that education allows them to kind of grow personally, and then start. I mean, like, I know there's a lot of things that musically I didn't really ever think I would be into, but from kind of just listening and paying attention, you start to find things and snippets of music that you can connect with, and the next thing you know, you're just like engulfed.
And I see what you mean, and I would totally agree. Like the more years you get under your belt, the more, at least personally, my taste has very much so expanded. And I think even the old Martin, teenage Martin, would even look at Martin today as like, wow, I can't believe you're like all these things.
Right.
Because maybe before I wanted to like more cool things, and today I have to say that I like very probably basic uncool things. Like, for example, I'm a huge fan of like top 40 pop music, because I know how much skill goes into, when you have so few elements and so few chords, those things really need to pop, and they need to be very much on point. So it's not necessarily easier making things that are, production wise scaled back or have few elements. If you want to make a hit like that, and it sort of applies a little bit to dubstep and drum and bass too, because you don't have 200 bass sounds playing at the same time. You have one big thing happening, and it will just require full attention. That's a skill in itself.
Well, I don't think your creativity is necessarily just completely stopping at music. I think you also have a big say in the art. One thing I don't think people probably know is that you are the person that kind of deciphers what sort of color palette we roll out as that year's festival coloration, if you will.
And I used to be, I
used to be a lot more rigid about that,
yes,
too.
If we were going to talk about us getting into arguments, I think I used to be very rigid and very, I think maybe I've tried to change a little bit there and not be as, how can I put it, just like, you get this like one vision and it needs to be, to the letter exactly like that. Maybe a little bit just like the music. I've expanded a little bit and calmed down. But yes, it is very important. Music and visuals go together.
Yeah.
And, a classic example of watching a horror movie, just reversing this thought process. You watch a horror movie without sound on, it's not necessarily very scary.
Right.
So it goes both ways. So, and as we might talk about more in the future, all the clothes that we make,
right,
it's an extension of yourself. You put on like your power objects, and now you go about your day feeling more confident.
Yeah, no,
how I dress is really important to me. Just for myself, what colors I wear during the day and whatnot. I'm pretty particular.
You love the color purple.
Yeah, I do, and
that's part of where some of the coloration for this year's festival flyer came from. I know you do not like lime green, like at least not together. We've talked about that. You're like toxic green, I think is what you call it. You're like puke green.
I think, yeah, I mean, I have my preferences. It also has to do with which colors you combine.
Yeah.
And then, of course, like what colors maybe I feel like I look good in when I'm dressed in it myself.
Yeah.
But we're trying to get away from that too personalized thinking too. I think you've helped me a lot with that. Going to the merch, just like every item doesn't have to be the loudest, craziest thing,
Yeah, this, and this year's festival will have, we're planning on doing multiple jerseys similar to how we did it last year where each day has a jersey drop.
That was cool.
And this year the idea is that we're going to use different vendors of people that, we love their design and their styles of jerseys. And then, it's going to be kind of set up accordingly. And each brand, if you will, is going to get their jersey to drop on those certain days.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Which I'm really excited about because, being able to kind of continue to support a lot of these people is super. I think that goes back to the community aspect of what we're always trying to do.
Oh, for sure. I mean, those people are very important to us too, and to the extended community.
Yeah, and
it's great to collab like that.
And then another thing that I think, I'm personally really excited about is like this year, while I don't want to say too much, we're also kind of evolving into doing some different genres of what's happening for the festival musically.
Yes.
We're kind of taking, diversifying a little bit and finding kind of that woven thread that kind of
for sure and
kind of continues on.
That I think is important that we keep doing. That's sort of part of, I think, our mission statement.
Yeah. And
because that's a freeform aspect, and freeform has to evolve too.
Yeah.
It's like what used to be rave music or underground techno 20 years ago is not the same today.
Yeah.
It just naturally
shifts. What do you think, like, with the festival this year, what do you think most of your days are going to look like? I mean, like, I even wonder if people like know that you're like watching and you're kind of like in a different part of the festival that, people, not all people have access to, but like, I know you're definitely paying attention and you're seeing what's happening.
Yeah, I love this culture. That's why we're doing this in the first place,
right?
I think. But I mean, last time around, I found myself quite busy a lot of the time with just work around the festival or working on my own performances. Because I performed every day.
Yeah.
In one shape or another, and my life is always busy, so ideally, and I think I've gotten better at this, I put in a lot of effort into working on my sets and always fixing and improving. One thing I'm going to do better this year is to prep a lot more before I even get on site,
right,
so that I can be freed up more.
Yeah,
I mean, I was out a lot in every area of the festival. Sometimes I even put on some different clothes so I don't get recognized as much. I don't mind getting recognized. I love talking to people, but it does change the MO of what it is that I'm doing. I'm no longer watching a set. I'm talking to people. I'm not dancing. I'm signing autographs. So, but I was still out there watching a lot of music, especially late night. Especially that last night.
Yeah.
I was out listening to a lot of music.
I don't think we went to bed till like 9 or 10 a.m.
Well, that's no one else's business. When I go to bed, I always go to bed late. I'm a nocturnal being. But yeah, and then I think I'm going to try to come up with some cool activations for the fans that I can be doing during the time too. I have some ideas. We've talked about a couple of things, but it would be cool to put together some type of panel. Probably not the same type of meet and greet as we had last time. It's just getting too big, and I need to start realizing that.
Yeah.
Which is hard for me because I see myself as a very normal person somehow, but then a lot of time gets swallowed up that way very quickly, and maybe it doesn't really serve the larger community, talking to one person at a time, you know what I'm saying? So gotta find some good ways to still be like personable. That's what we're trying to do with this podcast too. Just
Right.
like be more ourselves and have a long form conversation where you actually get to the bottom of things, you know?
Well, and a lot of what I think also, last year, which I don't see too big of a difference this year, is entertaining the people that are willing to kind of come and play. Not necessarily like on stage, but like, these people are your.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of
So
these people are friends.
Of course,
like
so that's
like
a huge part. I mean, it's like
drinking tequila and smoking weed and hanging out and enjoying the actual relationship part of being amongst your friends.
I mean, usually when I get to any venue, I will not have a lot of time to even think because there will be people around the whole time talking, wanting things, checking things out. I mean, it's always full on. So yes, I mean, of course, it's going to be that. I don't really party super hard when I play. I take it as you know. So it's not going to be as much of a party for me as it's going to be for everyone else, and I think that's
Right.
how it has to be. Probably
Yeah.
the same for you.
Most
Maybe we
certainly.
can talk about drinking tequila, but I don't think I'm going to be drinking a lot of tequila.
I will probably drink some tequila.
I mean, why not? But I'm just saying that's not really my MO.
It's got to be good tequila, though. For sure.
It's one of those things like being on stage, and I mean, I've tried different things during different parts of my life, but I think that when you're on stage, you speak about drinking to take the edge off, but you kind of need your edge or part of your edge when you're going to be performing.
Right.
So it's a fine balance. It's a slippery slope. It is fun to party.
Sure. Yeah.
It's also really fun to not fuck up my set. Or, like the treacherous thing of thinking that you play better because you're fucked up, but in fact you're not. And we've all seen that. So
yeah.
I don't want to go too deep in that, but I'm not trying to do that. I'm actually super excited to be playing, and I feel it's a sacred agreement that I'm making, especially it's our own festival. Like, gotta be on my A game.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna be a little nervous, and I'm for sure gonna take it really seriously. That's when you get nervous.
Definitely gonna be super nervous. I'm nervous right now just talking about it. So,
but nervous is good. When you have a little
healthy.
butterflies in the stomach, that's when you're not stagnating. It needs to be like that.
Yeah.
So going up totally sober on stage is definitely also more intimidating than being fucked up. One thing I don't do before my sets, as you know, I love smoking weed, but I don't ever do it before I play. Have you noticed? Always
absolutely.
Those days I don't smoke at all.
You don't really smoke on tour
because smoking makes me very creative and introverted, but I need to be extroverted on stage.
See, smoking makes me go to sleep.
It has more. I mean, it does not for me, but it does not make me social. It makes me very turned inwards, philosophical, opening the portal to the higher dimensions of music, and I don't want to maybe talk as much.
Yeah,
so
I do not think that would probably be wise at the festival.
No. It's just something I've learned with myself, and other people that might be working totally different.
As lame as this is, one of the things I'm actually excited about is our lawyer being on site the whole time.
That does sound lame, but it's not, because our lawyer is really cool.
Yeah, he is cool. I like the man. So, other
it
things
also sounds suspicious. Like, why? What are you gonna be up to? Is there need a
there's
lawyer for?
There's a lot of things that can go sideways in that festival. And I don't think people realize that. Like, there's so many different components of, like, everybody's dancing, having a good time, focusing on whoever's playing or whatever. But there's so many more things. I mean, like, that's also part of the reason why it's really hard for me to even go to shows and festivals now, because I'm like walking around being like, oh, that person's underage drinking. They have X's on there. Like, even like dumb shit like
Oh,
that.
I know.
And it's really hard to kind of switch that off. Or, somebody gets kind of too close backstage and you're like, they have credentials. Like, there's a lot of those sort of things.
But let's not forget, and I don't mean to bring up very tragic things, but we all know concerts that have gone really, really bad.
Yeah.
I mean, people
been a handful
died
of them.
and stuff there. So of course that, and maybe like we come across as these like happy-go-lucky hippies, and I dress funny with my headbands and speak funny or whatever. But we do take shit seriously. We have a whole team of lawyers. I mean, we have a whole team of business managers. On the back end of WAKAAN, it's done very, very seriously. A lot thanks to you, because you're very good at those kind of things, and it needs to be in place. Like, it's like, if you want to have a lot of fun in your life, you also got to be very responsible in your life.
And I don't think like the staff that, there's people for, side ops, there's quartermasters, there's security, there's EMTs, there's Waylon, your partner with the festival, there's Dan who runs it, there's me who books it, there's Chloe who does marketing. Then we have a whole slew of photographers and media people and press people and
Much people, yeah.
It's just
the
like the list is just. I mean, honestly, it takes a whole village. And when you are mad at us because somebody didn't play or because something went awry, just keep in mind that there's probably another 500 people that are making that event take place. So be grateful and mindful of that.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of moving pieces, and it's very, very some of it is also force majeure. It's just like weather, for example. It's impossible to control. But going back to what you asked me, what is it that I'm looking forward to the most? And you said one of those big pieces again, all these people engaged in, we become a machine, working together toward the same goal. And that's something that always gives me a huge
It's kind of a head fuck to see that like all people are going to travel from across the country. And I've looked at the data of some of our sales so far. There's people coming from different countries for this festival, and all to this weird little place in Arkansas to see our festival. And all these people and all these staff people that are going to get on planes, get in their cars, and have, set time away from their schedule to come to our event. It is like super humbling.
It just makes me take it a lot more seriously, for sure. And for the record, it is a very cool place, Mulberry Mountain. It's got a rich history of musical events.
Well, that's where WAKAAN.
Yes.
And what's funny is like, I remember when we started working together, that was one of the festivals that we were trying to get you on, and they would never book you at all. And I was just like, he would be perfect for this. But like, that's actually how we kind of found the site, was trying to get you into WAKAAN. And so, Brett, I'm mad at you for not booking him. But
no, I was probably very irrelevant and much smaller back then too.
Yeah, but still, like it has it is a magical place. And I do think that when we talk about it and you start to, the memories kind of flood back, it's like you look at those and with like reverie, and it's like, it was very sacred ground.
I mean, it was cool during the tour when Wes, who's also running our podcast here, put together the long, amazing video.
Yeah.
That made me reminisce.
Yeah, definitely. And that was kind of I guess in a weird way, the idea of like trying to bring that full circle is like to try to evoke those feelings in that time. I mean, it was a different time. Even it was, 3 years ago, but it was still like pre-pandemic, and like, you didn't have a concern in the world that weekend. It It was
I
just
had
like,
a lot of concerns.
well,
I was working really hard,
I'm
but I
saying
know what you mean. It
the
was
majority of people went into it with the focus of having just a great time, and that's what
absolutely.
we try to provide.
No, absolutely.
So, and I do think that we achieved that, and I think that 2022 is gearing up to be bigger and better. And
we've been selling an incredible amount of tickets already.
yeah,
too.
it's
So
that never ceases to amaze me, is that people would spend their hard-earned money to come to what we do.
I think it's awesome.
And that's, I mean, eternally grateful for that. It's awesome. So, but yeah, you know, like I'm really excited about the festival. It is kind of like, in my opinion, kind of like the culmination and the crown jewel of kind of our whole operation. And it's cool to see this thing that you work on for a year in advance, kind of, you know, see it in real life.
Well, I have more plans like this if you don't feel like you're working enough. But for now, yeah, let's stay on point. But yes, no, I mean, it went from a crazy idea to something that would almost be hard to imagine my life without. And I'm saying that with just 1 year under our belt. But now we've already worked through the upcoming festival, and we worked so much on it. It's almost like it's very much real for me.
Yeah.
And it's a very important part. And like, again, I don't mean to harp on this too much, but it engages so many people working toward the same objective, and that's something that gives me a kick. That makes me inspired,
right,
to work even harder.
Any new things that you're going to be doing? Any new tunes you're going to be playing at the festival?
Yeah, I always make new tunes, but I'm actually like ahead of the curve since I finished the Balance album, which I did really end of last year. But then, you know, it takes time to get it into distribution. You try to come up with some type of marketing plan so people actually know that it's happening.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's still kind of being rolled out.
Right.
But I also finished a brand new down-tempo EP a while ago that we're gonna put out on Sasquan, which means that right now I'm in the process of writing even more new music. I have a couple of releases up here that I want to get into my computer, you know, actually make, you know, so they're not just resting in my head. There'll be a lot of new music.
Anybody you're super excited about seeing at the festival?
Yes, and I can talk about that because we haven't
Why
announced,
not, dude? Everybody wants to know.
I know. You almost got me there. I was almost starting to reveal the lineup because I'm very excited. In fact, the whole team and you have done a tremendous job. I'm, you know, it's cool when those things work out. As we said earlier, there are a lot of hoops to jump through to get an artist to be confirmed and actually show up and play.
Yeah.
Release clauses, money, billing, scheduling, you know, like availability. So when it actually works, when that puzzle comes together, it's a very good feeling. And I feel like it really did for us.
I would agree.
I mean, last year too, and this year trying to, you know, we always try to beat ourselves, you know?
That's
like,
the goal. Every year.
Yeah.
Make it better.
Then you get it better.
Give the fan base a better experience. Give them more food options. Give them better bathrooms.
And
ease of getting in. I know, like, one thing that, like, security was like a thing, and everybody was like frustrated about that. But I mean, these are people that have to do their part to protect the collective of all of us.
But we are looking into those things. Yes,
absolutely.
There are certain things. This is like every single festival, but like, of course, like there are a number of things that, you know, we've already been talking about. I've written down like things that's our responsibility to look at things that we can do better.
Yeah.
How do we get the people into the festival as fast as possible so they don't have to sit there just like, because they want to be in there having a good time.
Right.
You know, what's the best security company? What's the best thing to do around water, which is a passion of mine, having water.
Martin, last year or 2019, you were like, I don't care about some of this stuff, so I don't feel like I even need to be in this meeting as long as everybody has water.
Yeah, and that
So,
became a problem,
okay.
and then we solved the problem.
Yeah.
Like those things, that's on my mind heavily right now. You know, improving the festival, so it's like a lot better in every single regard. Another thing I think we're doing more this year. It was still good the first year, but something that's also I'm passionate about is all the art and art installations and just like things to be engaged with during the day or whatever, or when
Right.
you're not raging in front of the stage
Yeah.
or chillaxing in front of the stage. We're trying to put in a lot more work into that this year.
I'm excited. I you know, it's going to be a great year. So,
Yeah, we need to wrap this. We're almost out of time.
2022 WAKAAN Festival, September 28th is the pre-party. Starts September 29th of the actual festival. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, please. I mean, if you haven't been there before, come check it out. It'll be a time to remember for sure. I'm super excited about it.
I can say definitively, without a shadow of a doubt, I will be there.
Yeah, you better.
You will be there.
For sure.
But that's it. I don't know who else will.
Yes, you do. And so do I. And soon everyone will. But yeah, WAKAAN Festival 2022.
See you on the mountain.
Yes.